of evolution is not limited to simply to human evolution, to Earth evolution. The subject of evolution is the story of all existence, of all life. There is a constant state of evolution taking place within all existence, and you know that all matter lives, and that in that symphony of life there are many movements. There are cycles of evolution on every level, on the physical level, on the mental level, on the spiritual level, on the emotional level in terms of humanity. The flow of evolution is constant. Your consciousness is yet but a spark, intermittent in its illumination. The road of evolution is the road toward perfection. All species, all life, seek to perfect themselves. Perfection is simply total awareness. You are in fact already perfect. And the process of human evolution is to gradually open your perception and your understanding until that perfection is clear to you. And it is the road toward oneness with God. Now, there's still the deplorable tendency to humanize God as an old bearded man who's somehow sitting there out in space watching over everything. That's a very limiting concept, but quite natural in people that worship Mickey Mouse. It is that desire to characterize on limited terms that limits you from seeing the grandeur of the real. And so as your eyes gradually open, you gradually grope your way to the oneness. That is the complete awareness that opens the understanding that you are all one, that all life is one, and that you are one with God, that characterizes God. God is indeed all, and however unsatisfyingly abstract that concept is, it is nevertheless the case. Now, if God is perfect and some of His parts, and we'll use the His for simplicity's sake, if some of the parts are not and yet are simply groping toward perfection, well, what's the point? If God's already perfect, what is all this all about? What's the need for it? The fact is that God is not exempt from that universal need to evolve. So that which is perfect increases in perfection, which sounds like a contradiction, but from the higher perspective is not a contradiction. In your own evolution, in each of these eye winks called incarnations, in each of these laborious movements toward understanding, toward self-realization, you add to the sum total of the depth and the perception and the wholeness of God. A part, in the very smallest sense, of the very largest aspect of evolution. In your own pathways, as human beings, you have gone through many stages, as a people and as individuals. Individual aspects of consciousness. You have begun on this earth, not as, and we beg you to ignore largely Darwinian theories of evolution, as they are quite comically wrong, and not wrong in toto, but wrong because of false underpinnings. And yet, capturing some of the picture, but such a limited amount that it distorts It distorts the ability to see the reality of evolution. You're not descended from apes, for example. That is one of the falsities. We have explained in another session. We'll briefly mention this again. That the human spirit, as opposed to the contemporaneous human form, the human spirit is very, very ancient. The human spirit has gone through many phases, many cycles of evolution, and not on this planet alone, but on what you call Venus and what was in fact Atlantis, and prior to that on the planet now known as Mars. These evolutionary cycles reached their peak and collapsed in upon themselves due to fundamental imbalances. The search for consciousness was yet incomplete. An aspect of consciousness would be perfected in each of those evolutionary cycles. In the case of the Atlantean, the mentality was powerful and as near perfection as can be. The spirit was not so developed. The ego reigned supreme in a way that you cannot imagine, even in contemporary life on Earth. Because the ego, in a sense, had no competition. It was a glorification of the mind, the ability to manipulate matter through mental psychic abilities. Now, we always refer to the psychic spiritual abilities that are now coming into your use. It is a combination of the talent of the mentality, the psychic ability, and the subtle talents of the spirit. And so when those two forces, those two energies are joined, there is harmony, and there is a great power guided by a great understanding. And so in the Atlantean cycle that culminated in through ego, through an excess of pride, the planet was destroyed. It was rendered uninhabitable. Now, the level of their civilization was very, very high. But because of that fundamental imbalance, body, yes, fully developed. Mind, yes, fully developed. Spirit, no. And before that, the life on Mars, destroyed through war. You see, the fundamental message of these eras, of these cycles, has come down through to your knowledge, disguised in myth. But Mars, the god of war, was definitely the planet of war, and a very primitive effort was seen there. In that case, the mind, in its infinite complexity, had not been developed. What you had was a very warlike, instinctual, essentially unthinking level of creation. And of course destroyed itself, again through imbalance. So you see, while there are complete evolutionary cycles, the seeking always is for perfection, for balance, for full consciousness, body, mind, and spirit, one. Now, when body, mind, and spirit become one, there's no more compartmentalization into body, mind, and spirit. There is only the oneness. Full comprehension, full understanding. Ah, yes, I see. That's why I'm here. That's where I'm from. That's where I'm going. And the challenges to life remain, but change. The duality finally healed, the imbalance finally brought into balance. That has been the goal for humanity. And yet that too, not yet complete, that too is only one cycle of an evolution that is eternal. You look beyond and we see, yes, in this generation, the mightiest evolutionary leap in the history, the long history of humankind, is being taken. In this generation. Not completed, not refined, not brought to its greatest flowering, but complete in its essentials. A core. Humanity seeded with its new form. Those of you who have been voluntarily pilgrims on the path to your full freedom and your full responsibility are no longer accurately described as Homo sapiens. No longer to be limited by that definition of thinking man. You have already, in your personal evolution, in the struggles, in the pain of release, you have already been changed. In the reception of the Mary energy, the transforming energy that you have been sharing, nurturing, and multiplying within your own beings, you have changed. You have become new, not yet completed, but a vessel being refined and strengthened through dealing finally with the issues that have blocked you in this life and in countless other awarenesses. It is a momentous time in history. And yet, you are so lost in the minutiae of living, in the limited perspective of one caught in his individual brain, that even to you who are awakening, it is difficult to see the interrelationships of the patterns that are growing in human life on earth. The patterns that are bringing about the stresses, the intense pressure required for a major evolutionary leap. Now, this is a leap of the spirit. And therefore, it is a spiritual battleground. The war for the minds and hearts of humanity. The struggle within. The madness of a large portion of the race, who are not here to be a part of that evolutionary leap, but are here to be a part of the pressure that creates the possibility of the leap, and who are being consumed because the energies that have been released are so powerful as to either purify or destroy you. Destroyed in the capture of your fear. The deadly, dark side of the light. An illusion, as all shadow is illusion. But believed, and therefore given power and given life. Those of you who are beginning to see through the illusion of your personal fears can therefore see through the illusion of the thicket of fears that encumbers humanity. As you gain your wakefulness, as you go through your own process of evolution into new form, as your consciousness widens, and you've all experienced that either in meditation or in dreams or in a waking moment, You have experienced that flash of understanding that sometimes lasts but a microsecond, but that is sure and certain proof to you of the enormity, the complexity, and the oneness of existence. That state, that exalted state of awareness, is to be your normal consciousness. Universal awareness, awareness of the universe, awareness of all of your countless brothers and sisters and relatives both near and distant throughout this physical universe. Awareness of the vast network of realities that compose the wider universe. Awareness of all of the chords of power that lead to oneness with God. And yet aware of the smallest blade of grass. Aware of the breathing of the earth. Sounds like a dream. But it's not. It is, viewed coldly and coolly, quite logically, the next step. You look back into the history of humanity on Earth, and you see a slow, gradual groping toward consciousness, toward awareness. That was the beginning of this evolutionary era, this cycle. Now you are at the completion of that cycle. Humanity gradually moving in spirit from beast, from low cunning, from instinct, into thought, guided thought at first, guided by, quote, the gods, who gave direct instruction to these toddlers, unable to cross the street by themselves. And they fought among themselves for riches, for glory. And a few among them, always a few, are the seeds that bear fruit in the generations that follow. The philosophers, the spiritual guides, the few that keep the light burning, the nannies in the nursery. And gradually then, the next step in that evolutionary cycle took place, and humanity was given the right and the ability, the opening of consciousness necessary to think for themselves and to act in freedom, theoretically, but still deeply divided by the duality, the ignorance, the darkness into which one is born, the helplessness, the sense of sin, of guilt, the one universal guilt on the dark side, the one thing that all share. Some are jealous, and some are avaricious, and some are gluttonous, and some are this and that, but all feel guilt. Now we have in the past traced that to the burden of guilt that was the consciousness, within the consciousness of humanity as it made its trek from Atlantis, the home it had destroyed. It is the hallmark of the duality, the division of one's consciousness into ego and higher self, spirit and mind. That conflict has bred all of the dis-ease of humanity and of human society. All a prelude. Now that, you see, the history of the evolution in the solar system of the human spirit is being repeated again each time. What happened on Mars was then repeated on Venus and then carried further. A new development of consciousness. But each time retracing the evolutionary steps. So finally humanity was given as you were on Atlantis, the right to choose. Still blinded? Yes. But beginning to blink one's eyes in the light. A message then given to humanity that bore within it the promise of wholeness, of completion, of the end of guilt, the end of duality. The promise of Jesus the Christ, who entered human history in human form, but as a messenger of God, and now returns in spirit, in energy, to complete the promise, to end the evolutionary cycle, to begin the new cycle, in which finally the equation is complete. Body, mind, spirit, one. And a whole new chapter begins. The story never ends. That is where you find yourselves now. In a time that will provide the pressure that a coal needs to become a diamond. The pressure necessary for evolutionary change. This is not some vast, abstract thing that's somehow going on while you're doing something else. It is going on in your life. That is your share of this evolutionary journey. What happens to humanity is happening to individual humans in very personal ways, designed expressly to perfect you and you and you and you. What's left for you to find out about yourself? What fears are left for you to see through, experience, and dismiss? Each formula is different. Each individual unique. Each atom of the body of evolution specialized yet interdependent. The evolution would be incomplete without you. Each of you. Each of you providing a unique aspect to the awakening of full consciousness. This evolutionary step takes you out of the prison of the mind, locked away in separation from each other. For you are each other. And as you grow in this understanding and you look into each other's eyes, you see yourself. When we say you are each other, it's not just a pretty figure of speech. Look beyond this appearance of separation to the energy that flows from each of you into the wider reality and into oneness, and see that you are but extensions of the same consciousness. Each of you in your own way, doing a specialized task to complete and perfect the entire organism. You dream each other's dreams. You are not islands. We have spoken for long of the fact that you create your own reality. Well, each human reality up until now has been created because each human, in the way that it has been, because each human being believed himself to be an island. And so we've often said, well, your reality, the world you live in, is a far different place from the man next door, or from your brother or sister or mother or father. You agree on certain basic fundamentals, but what is real to you, what is meaningful, what composes the sets and the costumes and the storyline of your life is far different from any of those others. And that has been the story of the duality. Many, 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 many islands of belief. Now you are allowing those walls to crumble away. Now as you join your outer and inner selves, as higher self and ego self begin to communicate and to merge, not one canceling out the other, but to merge in completion. As that awareness goes on in you, you cannot remain islands. You search out each other. You find that someone you've just met, you're talking about the deepest issues of your life. You're reaching beyond and breaking through the artificial barriers, because they're simply barriers of flesh and bone and not barriers to a fully awakened spirit. You are learning finally to love. Fear has cancelled out love again and again and again in your histories and in this life. You could never find the perfect love because the fear blinded you. What you needed, what you desired. All masks for what you feared to create a reality that was not too threatening was your highest goal. All of that is crumbling away, but not without setting off a storm of activity in your lives. Such a momentous event in human history cannot creep by unnoticed. And so relationships are crashing, careers are crumbling and changing, friendships are eroding. All things seem up for grabs because you are in the turmoil of evolutionary change within a lifetime, within one lifetime. What a task you've set for yourselves. What faith to believe that you can become that which you cannot even imagine. So, of course, you take it step by step. If you tackled the whole mountain at once, you'd be too intimidated even to try. So we say, don't look at the whole thing. Look down at your feet and move one forward a step. It's cumulative. It is necessary in these tumultuous times that you reach out to each other. Confirm the actuality of your growing awareness of oneness. Form the group selves that will be characteristic of the age that is dawning. This is not the death of the I. It is the expansion into we. You are losing nothing. As your understanding deepens and your awareness of your interrelating energy increases, you will operate much more often in groups, in triads very often, in a number of different conformations depending on the nature of the task. But you are opening yourself to linking. Encourage it. Don't suffer in silence. Don't be ashamed of your suffering. Don't feel that you are in some way failing because you are experiencing pain and because you are repeating in appearance old issues. This is the pressure cooker. And there is no need and no good to be found in being solitary. You will each be amazed that when you reach out, you will be welcomed so gladly. All of human history aside, there is all of that suspicion All of that, what's in it for me? All of that, should I trust this person or not? That's all fear. That's huddling in your cell. And that will not be the response that you get. The next few years are providing the pressure we have spoken of to complete this action. An evolutionary leap is accompanied by loud noises. The old consciousness will not die gladly. It will be baffled, quite literally uncomprehending of these changed human beings, the triune human being. They will be unable to comprehend that wider perspective that sees the foolishness and the futility, the childishness of the interaction of human beings at war. Now this is going to be very threatening. And the nuclear power that is the personification of fear energy is in some danger of exploding. Now, frankly, the danger has lessened over the last year. The expanding consciousness and the expanding fear are in a sort of race. Well, the outcome of the race is already decided. The evolution is going to take place. But how much noise is going to accompany it is yet to be determined. For each of you that follows your path, that demonstrates your faith with courage, who are willing to see the fears that blind you, who are willing to experience those fears so that you may prove them false and release them. Those of you on that path are receiving Mary energy, are using it to change you, yourself, and are expanding because of it in your ability to love yourself first and foremost. That expanding energy touches others in your life, lights fires, turns switches in other lives. And so as you expand, as you touch each other, as you respond to the energy of growth, you strengthen and empower all of the emerging humanity. Now the Earth, too, on a different level, is also going through an evolutionary cycle. Seeking what? To perfect itself. To be the most perfect Earth it can be. It, too, is being goaded, tormented, stressed into the evolutionary change that it must make. It is being attacked, very simply. No need to go into the details, but it's being poisoned and attacked. The once symbiotic experience of life with humankind is turned parasitical. And the tormented Earth is responding, not simply in rejecting the poison, but in allowing the power of the poison to propel the development of antibodies that are creating a more powerful Earth. How? The outcome is going to be, again, a resumption and a perfection of the symbiotic relationship between humanity and its mother, the Earth. You are half Earth. The earth has great powers of its own, great energies of wisdom and understanding that it is releasing, will release to humans who are open to it. It is a partnership. You are not separate from the earth. That is a part of each lifetime. You are one with the earth. You've forgotten it, many of you now. But now you are to remember it, and it will be greatly enhanced. You will be empowered as you will empower the earth. And so that accompanying evolution of the earth is part and parcel of your own evolution. It's not a separate thing. Well, what a coincidence. The earth seems to be evolving at the same time we are. Not at all. It's all one, all right? There's the earth and there's humanity, both evolving. Well, there's an evolution that is spreading beyond that, too. You are becoming a part of the universal community. Your expansion, your access to consciousness, your evolutionary leap does not exist in a vacuum. It is a part of a vaster cycle, an integral, irreplaceable part. Therefore, this leap in consciousness that completes humanity in this form reverberates throughout the living universe. There are many midwives at this birth. That we've spoken of in more detail when we spoke of extraterrestrials. Not bug-eyed monsters. Fellow beings, fellow spirits, in a different state of evolution. Eager to help you be born. And don't worry, there's something in it for them. Because your birth begets birth. And gradually, slowly to human eyes, in terms of eons of time, the universe wakes up to its true nature. Every part of it, a part of God, a part of the completion, growing eternally into perfection, eternally, because the perfection perfects upon itself. And God is perfection, and God is growing. You are perfect, and you are growing. Now we will ask for any questions about this subject, and then we'll take a break, and we'll come back and be open to all sorts of questions. Why don't we take a break now, then, and give everyone a chance to think about this?
Plautus, I'm reading a book of channeled information from Vishnu, and in there he has a discussion about in the past history of mankind when he was free to move from the different astral planes into the physical plane and out, and that somehow through what he described as greed was forced to limit himself only to the physical plane, and there began the duality of existence. Can you say a little more about that?
Yes. This information is symbolically coded, and there is truth in it, but it needs to be seen into. It is not a clear glass. It is a crystal ball, and the shadows that move behind the words contain the information. We've spoken of the varieties of evolution. We've spoken of the complexity of the interrelated spirits that compose the living universe, and the fact that many stages are reached in the course of these many evolutionary cycles. And so in this case, we would say that this was a harking to a vision not of the past, but of the future. And you see, oh dear. Time is difficult because time is not constant. Time is also a construct. Time, as your vision improves, you will see its illusionary aspects and its circular aspect. Time does not extend; it's not a one-way road. And so, standing in the center of a wheel, you may point in any direction and be pointing at the outside of the wheel. So we will leave Vishnu to his own direction.
Well, in a future context then, what kind of things, as we break down the duality, can we expect with the interaction with our higher self?
The interaction with the higher self will end because you will become one with the higher self. Ego self not destroyed, but opened into wholeness. And so the duality is healed in that way. So higher self, the still small voice, the guide that you get in contact with in meditation, becomes a fully accessed part of your being. And so there is no duality. There is only oneness. And so as you move forward into the exploration that lies ahead of you, it is exploration both within, figuratively speaking, and without. It is exploration into inner space, into the connections among realities, and exploration outward into physical space in this rather largish universe that you live in. So you, as humanity, will be expanding the parameters of your thoughts and your awareness. So you will be moving on a psychic spiritual plane into a wider understanding and seeing of the network, the web work of reality, the multidimensionality of reality, at the same time that you will be in your earthly human. Remember that you are of this universe. You are human. You are of earth. You are of earth. You are of this universe. And therefore, your tasks as evolving creatures lie predominantly within this space, within this construct. And so your exploration in that case, as humanity, will be outward to the planets and to the stars, and not by such limited mechanical contrivances as you now have. There will be exploration on a purely mental, spiritual level, in which your consciousness will intertwine with other consciousnesses, such as is already taking place with many now, in which connections are being made with other aspects of self that have their living form in other planets and other star systems, many far distant from this. And so space and time will be transcended in that sense, in that case. But also, as mind and spirit work together, as consciousness is literally expanded, you will have a vast field, call it science, but much expanded, to explore and to understand that is closed to you now. And so, any faster than that? Well, of course, you can, and you will go faster than that, because transcending light is also transcending time. So the vast distances that appear to be blocking you from space exploration are illusory. So there will be physical transportation also that will render space explorable within a human lifetime. So, this now, in terms of a time frame for this, you're now standing at the very threshold. You're standing at the end of the end and at the beginning of the beginning, right in the doorway. And so you have the entire future of this evolutionary cycle standing, awaiting you. And so it takes time for, in a time system, it takes time for matters to complete themselves. And so here you are in a world that is half dying and half being born, and institutions that are crumbling of their own deceit, of structures of society that have no further relevance, yet exist beyond their use, so that you have rather an impressive series of undertakings in order to create the reality that truly reflects your expanded awareness. You know, it's not going to just happen like lightning, you see. There's a dismantling and a reconstructing that must take place. Now, you can see yourself how firmly implanted certain fundamental institutions and attitudes are in humanity, and you can recognize that it's going to take some pretty heavy-duty shocks to break down this rigid, though tottering structure. And that is what you may have to look forward to in the immediate future. Now, it sounds quite grim, but understand that you are creatures who are going to be and are being expanded in your consciousness and your awareness and your perspective, and in the quality of your understanding and in your desire to give love, for which you will have ample opportunity. In a world gone mad, you will be the sanity, the understanding that sees beyond the disaster of the moment to the plan that is being enacted and that bears within itself its own reward. So in the next few years, as the pressure increases, what you see now clearly indicates what will be increased earth activity, volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, etc., changing in the earth's cycle. Yes, an attempt to to purify itself, to detoxify itself, but also a fundamental change in Earth's structure, as there is a fundamental change in your own structure. So it is in your mother, the Earth. And you will see greater evidence of this. Well, again, it doesn't exist in a vacuum either. These events, as they proliferate, also expand and increase the pressure in terms of starvation. Now, that's the starvation of vast portions of humanity is a major challenge for those who are awakening, a major challenge in understanding, and a major challenge in understanding that you're not going to save the whole world. The whole world is not there for saving. You are builders, not destroyers. But the healing that you do is a healing in which the patient must first reach and pass through the crisis point. You cannot stop that from occurring, or healing will not happen. And so the maelstrom that humanity is descending into and ascending out of is absolutely vital in the process. Now, does that mean, as the Bible says, well, the poor we have always with us, does that mean, well, you shrug your shoulders and say, well, people are going to starve? Yes, that's the way it goes. And people are going to be killed in battle, and that's the way it goes. It's a pity, of course, but you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. Well, of course not. That's not the feeling at all. You are learning to love. And to love and to care and to nurture, even when you know that the real physical impact is going to be limited. Doesn't matter. Your gift is to give, to share, to open the doorways of understanding, to become the embodiment of your purpose, And your purpose is to perfect yourself in achieving full consciousness and to receive and to give love in many, many forms, under many, many circumstances. Well, further in the next few years comes war. Probably beginning in the next year. Beginning. The war, yes, that has within it the threat of the nuclear action, but not the certainty. You cannot, in all practicality and reality, say, see here, Mr. President, you've got to put a stop to this because of this and this and this. You can't interfere in all reality in the actions of government and of basic human struggle. All you can do is, in a sense, cultivate your own garden. That does not mean divorcing yourself from the results of the actions on the wider human stage, but it is a recognition that for healing to take place, you must be healed. For humanity to live and to thrive and to grow, you must live and thrive and grow, for you are humanity. For men to learn to love one another, you must love yourself and your friends and those that you come in contact with and behave as though you loved them. Not some sort of a Sunday piety, but an action that comes because you have opened yourself to receive love. You cannot give love without receiving it. And it is the receiving of love that is the most difficult for most of you. Because you don't receive it from yourself. You parcel it out ungenerously to yourself, full of self-criticism, full of guilt at your many real and imagined failures. How can you fully love a creature so impaired, so imperfect? Well, of course, the recognition is that you are not imperfect. And you love yourself not in spite of your illusions, but you love yourself as you see the illusions and as you release the illusions. There will be many opportunities for you to serve. It's why you are here at this time. Forerunners, pioneers, the seed that propagates a new humanity. A difficult time, but one full of reward. And each in your own way, suitable to your own needs and to your own abilities, will give, will share, will see humanity through this crisis of death and rebirth. And generally not through large deeds and large gestures and large words, but through the action of your daily life. For it is not petty. Each life is a microcosm of all life. Each human struggle a microcosm of the struggle to be free, to end the duality, to stop being afraid. Yes?
What about the people who our friends and neighbors who obviously don't come to the Plautus meetings, but I've noticed that just people within the neighborhood and people within the family and friends who seem to be changing themselves, and I wonder if they are receiving the Mary energy or if they are receiving it through me, or if they are just in contact with their higher selves, although they're not attuned to all this.
Well, the answer, the blanket answer is yes. All right, we'll start from the fact that each human is an individual, is unique. That until the duality is healed, you must be approached. The entrance, the entryway into full understanding must be tailored for you, for your needs, for your expectations, for your abilities. that all do not and cannot enter through the same door. In my house are many mansions, many realities, many doorways. And so you choose and are found by the answer that is best and most complete for you. Plautus speaks these words in this way, drawing a picture for you that is understandable to you, that allows you to follow and complete your own awareness by planting seeds that reverberate for you. But on the other side of the world, and in Russia, and throughout the world, are pockets of humanity gathering individually and in groups to hear and to understand and to receive a version of that truth put in terms that can be understood best by them. Always the underlying reality is the same. The nature of the energy. Now, the energy may be described by Plautus as Mary energy and be related to intimately to the Christian story and promise, and is true in those terms. But it is not the only story that animates humanity. And so other stories are told in other languages and in other cultures that trigger the same series of responses, of opening, of understanding that lead to oneness. Oneness is not only for fellow white Midwestern Republicans. Oneness is open not only to the entire spectrum of race and of culture and of language. It is open to all because it is completed by all. And so there are many doors of understanding, each one leading finally to the same comprehension.
Plautus? There are many, many nonprofit organizations that supposedly protect the environment, endangered species, help people out who are being tortured, just a whole range, anti-nuke kinds of things. I've been supporting a lot of these things along the way, but I lately have been feeling like they are just part of the old system.
Well, they are the old system in transition. The urge that has brought these matters into view and into organizations over the last few years, and if you look at the panoply of history, you see that this sort of altruistic concern is a very recent vintage. It is a response to the introduction of new energy. Remember, while the Mary energy itself has been released per se only within the last few years, great events cast their shadow before them, and the intimation of energy yet to be released has begun over the last, most intensively over the last 25 years, has begun to create the conditions necessary for the new consciousness. Well, the forms are still the forms of the past, because this is a transitional time. But the urges that those forms represent are the urges of that which is coming into being.
So it is a good idea to support these things? I've heard that now this may be out to lunch, I'm not sure, but somebody once said to me that the dark forces tend to run these kinds of things, that if you're looking for dark force, you're going to find it in a place that you don't expect to find it.
Pishtash. No. This is fear itself that is speaking. Fear and distrust of one's fellows. While it is certainly true that all human institutions are touched by frailty and by aspects of the darkness that has been the human condition, Nevertheless, we are following the pathway of faith and enlightenment, and the urges that bring human beings together to heal aspects of dis-ease are aspects of God, are the influences of the God in man. And the fact that there may be some mud clinging to various shoes is not a reason to avoid involvement with that which is searching for healing.
Thank you.
Plautus, you said something about a war coming next year. Can you explain that? I have a son. I don't want to go to war and kill anyone. I want to maybe...
Well, that's up to him. That's up to him, you know. That's what free choice is all about. It's not for you to worry about. It's going to be a moral, spiritual decision for him to make. And you are fortunate in the country in which you live is that that is a viable choice that he has the ability to make. Now, when we speak of the beginnings of war, in fact, the war has already begun. We are seeing an acceleration of this conflagration. It is not going to be localized as wars have been so often in the past. Even so-called world wars were relatively localized. Here we have a war between humanity and itself that is not, it may be pegged at this place on a religious issue, and another place on an economic issue, and another place on a racial issue. But it is the same war. It is the war between fear and love, the war between darkness and enlightenment. And it is not black and white, as our words would seem to indicate. It is the trend. It is the flow between those polarities that causes this disruption. And so fear may struggle with fear in one aspect of the continuing war. But within those two sides, each one motivated by fear of the other and fear of this and that, within those sides themselves a war exists between darkness and light. So it is not simply country against country, culture against culture, people against people. It is all of that, yes, but it is also a war within that is being expressed. The likelihood that we are seeing is that and appropriately for symbolic purposes, and symbol is truth simply in disguise, that this war is going to have its earliest clear manifestation in the Middle East. And it is likely that by the end of the summer to come, at the latest, that the war clouds will have begun to flash lightning, and that there is going to be the whirlpool effect that seeks to draw in all around in a wider and wider pattern. And it is going to be the task of those of enlightenment, of growing enlightenment, to avert and forestall and ultimately transcend that invitation to disaster. And while it may not look like it, even now, within the political arena and within the arena of leadership in many areas, are enlightened spirits, such as yourselves, who are beginning to have an impact. This is also a generational matter. It is loosely within a generation, and there are some from what you would call an earlier generation and some from generations to come that are involved. But ultimately, basically, this is a generational change. And therefore time is a factor in it. And so what we're saying in general is that war is likely to break out in clear form into the middle and perhaps beyond of the coming year. And it is going to be not a war of tanks and armies alone, but a war of the dispossessed and the possessing.
A lot of terrorism.
Yes, exactly so, and we point to the word itself as a manifestation of the fear energy, terror, and the work of terror is the action of the fear energy.
Do you feel that the new Soviet leadership is less of a threat to us than it has been? Are they becoming more enlightened?
Well, the threat, you see, exists in mutual fear. Where there is no mutual fear, there is no threat. The threat is not real, only the fear appears to be real. And we are seeing those of greater enlightenment on that in that aspect too. You see, many of you are still a bit lost in political beliefs that are at wide variance from the actuality. This is not so clear-cut a good guy, bad guy sort of encounter here. While it is true that the United States of America is the spiritual heir of Atlantis and the launching place of the New Age, it does not mean that this is the White Knight and that the Soviet Union is the dragon. We see there as much humanity and as much light and as much hope, and in some ways a greater recognition, at least upon a theoretical level, of the interrelated nature of humanity. We see within both societies the seeds of disease and the seeds of healing, and so as we say, it's not them and us. It was Pogo in the comic strips who said, we have met the enemy and he is us. And that is the fact. Within each human being is the enemy. Not this culture against that culture, not this individual against that, but each individual dealing with themselves as a microcosm of the whole. So the struggle that goes on within you has its impact in human events, in the cycles of history. There is nothing to fear from the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union has nothing to fear from us in the United States, except fear.
Well, it seems like the whole worldwide spy network is just disintegrating too. Nobody can trust anybody. You've got spies, counter spies, and they're all defecting to each other.
Yes, we wish to point out, apropos of that in this time of the extreme polarity that predates the collapse of the polarity into wholeness, in the time of the exaggeration of the polarity, you will also be dealing on a daily basis with absurdity. And there's much a call for amusement and even merriment at the spectacles of illusions collapsing upon themselves in a public way. You will find that the reality is strewn with banana peels, and if you are wise, you will find the humor also in your own falls and slipping as you see the reflection of what is taking place in society, because the inconsistency that is part and parcel of a thing that is neither nor, that is one thing becoming another thing, is within you as it is within the society as a whole, and so inconsistencies will be marked. And logical absurdities will be and are a part of everyday life, and the gift of laughter is a precious one indeed in keeping your balance during such a time.
Plautus, if we see our environment around us
as symbolic. What came to mind was one day when I was just starting to meditate, I closed my eyes and here was this little nature spirit of a male vibration. And he was just jumping up and down, and he looked at me and he said, "You can see me, you can see me, you can see me." And back of him was this little gossamer wing angel type spirit. And she was just smiling, and saying, "We'll let him jump up and down." And then I thought afterwards, it was sort of like me, it was sort of the same symbology that I was going through. In other words, I was becoming aware of the backing that I had from the spirit world.
Yes, and the personifications that you saw were not illusory. They were, in fact, representatives of the world of fairy. This is, you look into your myths, and the fact is that these are not myths. This is reality, and it is but a vibration away. There are multiple layers of reality that you live in. You're only able to see a small band in the spectrum of what is truly taking place. And at a time when humanity was more impressionable, less sophisticated, less touched by the necessities of rationality and adherence to a logical structure, less the slaves of their ego mind, there was a wider recognition and a much more frequent ability to see and to be a part of the other kingdoms that share this space and this with you, and that is a part of it, and there are what we've described as thin places in the reality where you can look through and pop your head through, and others can do the same, and you will find, and many of you may have done this in particularly in a meditative state or a twilight sleep state. You may have had some other reality intrude upon yours and receive a direct communication from some other creature in some other reality. It's not an uncommon experience, and as your consciousness widens, you're going to be able to choose to visit within inner space.
Plautus, several times I've had dreams where I've been flying. I experienced flying over people's head. I could lift myself up at will, transport myself, and I've always enjoyed them very much. I had a very elated feeling, happy feeling after that. What does that mean?
Well, it is. There is, in the case that you speak of, there has been astral travel, and you were in fact flying. The spirit is not anchored by gravity, as is the physical body, and the spirit may move from the physical body. It always retains a foothold, but the spirit may visit throughout the world and throughout the universe, and very often this takes place during sleep and can take place during deep meditation. And the experience of flying, of course, is universal. It is the experience of being anchored in the mud that is unusual. And so you will remember, and you will remember the feeling of flying and the freedom that it does entail.
Plautus, what role does karma play in this evolution of mankind? As we stand in the doorway, are we completing a cycle?
Yes. Yes, karma, as you understand it, is a part of the duality and cannot exist when the duality is healed. It is darkness, it is fear personification, it is debts, it is inequalities, imbalances, that arise between spirits during the long and complex dance of evolution that has led to this point. Now, you are not without karma in your present state, in your present form, in this present time. You may not have all of the karma, all of the debts, all of the imperfections and so forth that you think you feel or think that you are aware of. Most often, the spirits incarnating now to be a part of the evolution are completing a variety of karmic debts, bringing, finishing off details. There's a little unfinished something with you over here, and we have something we've got to finish over here. It is a part of the mobility of the age, so that you, because you need to be mobile, you need to be able to move, you need to be able to find each other to complete these matters. And so, more rarely in this time of the spirit's development is there a single or one or two very deep karmic issues to be dealt with. It is generally a finishing off process in many areas. But remember that the awareness that you have now, the consciousness that you wear, the I that you think you are, is disguised, is a character that you have created in your wider knowledge, in your wider self, that you have created to be a vehicle for a particular story to get particular tasks done. And you may create, and very often do create, a character that looks and feels a lot weaker, more imperfect, etc., than you truly are as a part of the disguise. So there may be matters that you are aware of that are really not anything more than a part of the illusion that you've used to fool yourself. And generally, yes, this is a completion of a karmic cycle. And the lives that you live henceforth, the lives, in other words, that you will be aware of from this time forward, are not a part of the duality, are not a part of karma in the sense that you have always understood it. There is still deep, vital life purpose at the center of every incarnation as the time moves forward, but the issues are different. So, yes, one more question.
Can you check on my own personal evolution, how far I have come? I feel I've come a long way since a year ago last summer, but I just wondered.
Yes, well, it's a period of intensive action for you, where there's a lot of catching up that's being done. You blocked yourself for a long time, and when the floodgates opened, they inundated you. And so you're feeling a bit uncertain and a bit lost amidst change that is occurring faster than you are able to assimilate it. Don't worry about this. You're going to be given the time to assimilate the change. The quick movement forward is appropriate to this time, and we see you moving along on schedule.
Thank you.
Yes. So we're going to draw this reading to a close this evening, and we thank you all for your attention and bid you Godspeed as your journeys continue.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you.
Thank you.